All right, so it's saying yes as well. Okay, thanks, guys. So it's just going to be messy, unfortunately, when I have to come and see your comments and stuff. Things are going to go a little bit weird, so just bear with me because I'm on the single screen. So, like I said, there's the tree with the roots. The outer world is a reflection of our inner world. So we cannot ignore this. If we want to succeed and we want to create much better results in our business and create much bigger outcomes, we cannot ignore the fact that what goes in this damn head of ours has a direct influence on what actually seems to happen in the real world. So at the end of the day, we need to spend some time. And that's why we start the series, in terms of the real education in the context of ourselves. How do we master ourselves? Now, this is a lifelong commitment. We're never going to fix ourselves over one night or overcome our belief systems or challenges. So we're going to address some of these things as we talk about other aspects. But I want you to know that your journey, you need to commit yourself to a journey of personal growth. You need to commit yourself to a journey of becoming the better version of yourself. And I mean, this, the health and the physical stuff is important as well, but this is predominantly from a mental perspective. So please, we need to understand, whether we like it or not, the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. If we've got turmoil in our mind, it's going to often create turmoil externally. So I don't want to teach you the techniques of how to work better with money or how to build better teams until we've actually addressed, this journey. So we're going to get quite practical. We're going to look at a couple of things that you can explore further, some that you can do with us. So we're going to look at the what, who, when, how, and why of ourselves, okay? So we're going to start with, what do we value? What do we value? What is truly the most important things to us? We're going to talk then about who are we and how do we best serve our business. We're then going to talk about when, as in how do we maximize our own productivity, so around time. And then we're going to talk about how do we get where you want to go and why do we do what we do. So because of our limited time, because we lost so much time here, we're probably going to deal with the first three of them today, if I can get through them relatively quickly. And then we'll deal with the other two on Monday. With a few other things on top of that as well. So let's dive straight into what, okay? Master yourself the what, which is really based on Dr. John Demartini's teaching of what do we value? What do we value? So our values are things that are most important to us. They're often mistaken as characteristics or traits. So people talk about things like honesty as a value, or reliability as a value, or integrity as a value, or love as a value. I just noticed something. I have no water. I got like a little bit of water here. Hopefully I don't clog up too much. But values are not characteristics. So characteristics are important, but we can actually change them. I used to be late for everything. Now I'm early for everything. These are sort of habitual ways of life for our sort of routines that we sort of live with by life. So you've all got friends, and you've got friends that think they're really caring, but they're not, or they're really reliable, but they're not reliable. And we actually dictate whether we connect with people based on those characteristics. Now we'll talk more about those from a business perspective much later on, about module 5 or 6. When we talk about values, we talk about this concept of the hierarchy of values, because if you actually look up the word value, it has these two distinct meanings. And the secondary meaning is actually where it originated from, where the origin of the word comes from. And that is, the understanding of what is truly most important to you and living true to what is important to you. So Dr. John Demartini, who's a good friend of mine, he really deals with this extensively. In any of his workshops you go to, he's going to bring up values, any of them, any of the 60 or 70 talks that he does around the world, 70 different topics. Almost every single one, he will talk about the hierarchy of values. But then also you've got, he wrote the book called Values Factor, which is really great to work with as well. So we're going to give you some resources, because not all of you, but a lot of you have got access to the club. And for those that haven't, we're going to give you access to some resources you can work with on to actually determine your values and determine what is truly most important to you. Don't guess it. John's got a very clever technique on teaching it. And don't guess it, because if you guess it, you're going to be wrong most of the time. All right, so the hierarchy of our values dictates our destiny, which basically means that the things that are truly most important to us, the more we can live in congruence to those things that are truly most important to us, the more we attract better circumstances, people, and opportunities in our life. Now, if you feel like life has been a little bit harsh on you and clapping you sometimes and things keep going wrong, I can pretty much guarantee you that if we assess your values and what's truly most important in your life, you will find that you're not being authentic and you're living by other people's expectations or values. And that's generally what happens. We tend to live in the shadow of other people, and not just people, but institutions like religion and culture and all types of things come in and say, this is how you should be. Our friends, our spouses, you should be like this. and so we become sort of attached to how we should be instead of how we actually are. And this is where it becomes false. Now, when we live to that falsehood, when we actually are not living congruent to ourselves or true to ourselves, we tend to attract negative circumstances, opportunities, and people into our lives. So it's almost like a warning mechanism when things are really going wrong in your life and, nothing you seem to do seems to work, that you're probably not being congruent. And this was a profound thing for me. When I learned this and I implemented this, it felt like I went from life beating me down to life actually putting its arm down and giving me a hand and saying, let me help you up. So this is an interesting context. It's an interesting concept as well, because, this is profoundly powerful, but it's something we are not fully in touch with. All right. So we need to learn to become congruent. We need to learn to become true to ourselves. Okay. And not live by other people's values. The more we live by other people's values, the more we are subordinate to that. And I promise you, your life is not going to feel fulfilled and very meaningful for you as a whole. So people also don't, they don't work for you. It's interesting. We'll talk about this later later as in a few days' time when we talk about teams and what have you. We always think, people work for us, and we do things in life for ourselves. And the main reason we do things in lives is to serve our values, not to serve you, but to serve our values. And when we learn this about other people, we'll talk a lot more about this when we get into the whole mastering people and team stuff. When we learn this about other people, it becomes profound, because if we can learn what they value and we can help them be true to what they value, and if we can align our business and what they do in our business with what they value, you will get higher productivity, you'll get higher loyalty, you'll get people that are really just so much better than you realized. And anyway, I don't want to jump the gun, because that comes up in sort of module 5, I think, or 5 or 6, when we talk about mastering people and culture as a whole. So being true to what you value is a magnet that attracts positive circumstances and people and opportunities in your life. So if you are not congruent, and we talk about you being successful in business, it's going to deter you. It's going to actually work against you. And this is very important for us to understand. So I'm going to try and do something here that we haven't tried yet in this webinar. So hopefully it's going to work out. Now, this is where I'm going to have to get a bit messy. I'm going to have to leave the presentation. And you are now going to see, let me just go there, to there, and it's going to go all funny on the screen. It's going to go a little bit haywire because it's looking at the screen that it's on. And I'm going to start a video. All right, so I'm not going to play this whole video. I'm going to play you a short snippet of this video of John. Team, please make sure when I come back that you can hear me. Just confirm, because we know what happened last time we played a video. So I'm a little bit apprehensive, but the system is designed to do it. So this is Dr. John DeMartini, just talking a little bit about this, so you can get a bit of a connection both with him and some of the context that he brings to it. And then I'll show you how we can take this further, because we're not going to do this exercise. It's quite a time-consuming exercise. So I'm going to recommend you do it. I'm going to show you how you can do it and how you can actually get John to help you through this, courtesy of us. So let's go there. Let's load the video, and let's watch. We're not going to watch the full 27 minutes. We're just going to watch like 5 minutes. All right, here we go. Team, if you can just confirm that the video is working as well just after I start it, that'll be great.
So how do we determine values? That's an important component. So hope you write this. I know I speak a little fast sometimes, but I have a speed listening program that you can buy. Your life demonstrates your values. And anytime you set a goal that is not aligned with your highest values, you're attempting to be somebody you're not. And the brain is set up, because it's a telos-seeking organ, to automatically create a feedback to let you know when you're lying to yourself about what's important. So anytime you set a goal that is not congruent and aligned to your highest value, you will end up with what is called the ABCDs of negativity. You'll have internal anger at yourself, and you'll be aggressive to yourself. You'll end up blaming yourself, and you feel like you betrayed yourself. You'll criticize yourself, and you'll challenge yourself. You'll feel despaired and even depressed. Those ABCDs of negativity are natural, healthy, biological responses to goals that aren't authentic. So anytime you set a goal that's not yours, because you've compared yourself to others and thought, oh, I should be like that, I ought to be like that, I'm supposed to be like that, I need to be like that, and you hear yourself saying imperative language, should, ought to, supposed to, need to, that's not your goals. You never should yourself. You only inject the values of others that lead to shoulds. When you're setting goals that are truly meaningful and inspiring to you, you come from a language of I love it. I'm inspired by it. You come from a state of excellence. So your life demonstrates your values. But what happens is sometimes you have expectations to have something manifest in your life that doesn't match that. And that's when you get the ABCDs of negativity. I had a woman that came to me and she said, Dr. DeMartini, I don't know what my purpose is. And I said, bullshit. I said, your life demonstrates it. What do you do every day? What is it you do every single day that nobody has to remind you to do, that you get up and you're inspired to do every single day? And she said, well, I take care of my children. I said, is that what you love doing? She says, I love my children. I love doing that. But I should be running a business. I should be doing more with society. I should be doing this. She was comparing herself to her friends that had different values. And anytime you compare yourself with friends that have different values and expect yourself to be like them, you're self-defeating with the ABCDs of negativity, because you're not here to live in their shadows in that way. You're here to be you. Within 5 minutes, she was in tears because she realized that the real truth was that she was a mother and she wanted to raise children. That was what she loved doing. But she's not. If she compares herself to other people and thinks she's supposed to be doing something else, she's going to beat herself up and think it's not good enough. And the self-depreciation is a feedback to let her know that she's not being authentic with her ambitions. The moment she acknowledged that she could be a great mother, and I told her that Rose Kennedy's mission statement was, I dedicate my life to being a mother of world leaders, raise a family of world leaders. When she realized that, she got tears in her eyes. She says, that's what I want to do. I want to be a great mother. I want great kids. I said, well, then that's your mission. Don't live in a fantasy. You'll torture yourself. Every fantasy will create a nightmare. Every philia will create a phobia. Every manic ideal that you think you're going to do that's just fanic, that you get a little high on, that gives you dopamine rush, is going to make you crash. When you're authentic, you're centered, you're poised, you're present, you're purposeful, you're patient, you're productive, you're prioritized, you're powerful. So your life demonstrates your values. So I looked at life and I looked at some value determinants, ways of determining how you know what your values are. So maybe you can follow along in here, and I'll go through them real quick. You should have a booklet.
Okay, so Sally, just confirm you guys can hear me clearly again. Sally and Maritz, I should say. And I'm going to try this, and hopefully this time it'll work. On the top, so just ignore that, but at least you can see most of the screen. So determining values. So basically, I want you guys to figure out what your values are, okay? And so John helps you do this, and there's a couple of ways you can do this. For a lot of you, you've got membership to the Real Success Club. I actually need to go out of here now because I've got to go to this one, to the Real Success Club. So if you've got access, I know there's some of you that haven't, because only people that bought the package got access to the club. And I'm going to help you other guys out now shortly, but just hear me out for those that do have access to the club. So you come into the Real Success Club. Let's just log in. And never works as fast as I think. You'll see the headings up here: home, start here, your plan, your life, your business. So you'll see, go to your life, and you'll see there's a section called your value center. And you click on your value center, and it'll come up, and there's actually a little video of John there, talking about me and our association and the values. Oh, you can't see it. Sorry. Yes, I'm being stupid. Thank you. Let me just, you know what? Let's just not mess around. Let me go back here. Go here. now, right? So you come into the Real Success Club, to the home page. Sal, can you see the screen now? And Maritz? Okay, perfect. All right, so you come into the Real Success Club. For those that have access, because you can do this now tonight if you want to, as soon as you can, and you go to your life, and you'll see something called your value center under your life, and you click on that, your value center, and it'll come into your life values, and you'll see a little video by John that so, Sal, can you guys still hear me? We got you. Okay, sorry. Somebody was phoning. Wrong time to phone, people. All right. So, you click on the determine your values here, and you will get that little bit of video that I shared with you. There's the full version. There's a longer full version, which is an hour. But there's this version, which is 27 minutes, which is John talking you through the process of how to do this. So you want to watch that video. And in your manual, and sorry, I did not bring the manual. I rushed out of the house and left the manual behind. But, I said I think you started on page 108. So if you just go a few pages in, you'll actually see there's a whole written thing on determining your values there as well. And there's actually, I call it a cheat sheet. So you can fill it out on all the multiple pages, or there's a little sheet at the end that you can fill out just to make it a little bit easier. But you can do it through your manual as well, even if you don't watch the video. But if you can get on here, watch the video. You can also download the document here, and you can actually do it straight away. So I highly recommend you take time out. I'd like to hear on Monday that you guys have actually gone and done your values, that you've done your process, you've determined your values, and they change all the time, or they move and shuffle around all the time. So if you've done them before, but you should be doing them every 3 months anyway. So for those that can get into the club, please use the club resource. For those of you that cannot get into the club, what I'm going to do is by the session on Monday, there's normally something you'll see actually on the screen. I'll bring it up. And it normally says, listen, we're going to give you the stuff after the event. Now that's for the live event. So, after the event, we're not going to wait until, 4 weeks from now. So I'm going to give you your extra learning material. I'm going to give you access to it from either tomorrow or latest Monday. And so that video with the download, for those that want to do the video and don't want to do it from the manual, I will make sure it's available to you. You'll just check your email. There'll be an email coming out saying, click on this link for your what we call after program learning. So I'll just add to it manually as we go through different phases. So I'll just put this up to start off with. And then there's a few other things where we give you additional learning opportunities and homework, so to speak, that I'll put up there as it happens. Okay. But so the first one is to determine your values and to do that process with Dr. John Demartini. So I highly, highly recommend this. I'm sorry, this has been such a disconnect in how we've connected in this last sort of half an hour, 45 minutes, that I hope I've got the importance of it across. I hope you realize the value in doing this, because I don't want to underestimate, I don't want you to underestimate how profoundly powerful this is. So make it one of your homework objectives to determine your values. It's in the manual. There's about 12 pages there. You can go through there. It's probably sufficient because he asks the questions and gives you descriptions of it. If you want the video, which is, in other words, for John to talk you through it, then you can go into the members area or wait a day or so until I actually give it to you. Okay, those are your choices. But I suggest you do it as soon as you can. It's profoundly powerful, and there's a huge amount you can learn from it and understand from it going forward. All right, is everyone still with me? And are you guys going to do that? And does that make sense, considering it was such a jittery way of connecting with you guys? If you're still with me, let me know if you're going to do that. You're going to make the time. You've got plenty of choices. Those that have access to the club, you can get the video there straight away this evening. Those that don't, we'll send it to you a little bit later. But of course, you can do it out of your manual as well. Okay, so if you soon after you purchase the package, you should have got an email from the Real Success Club with your login details. If you haven't, please let us know. Sally, just make note and double check. But we did register you actually a while ago, so you should have got an email. These are different login details to get to your recordings. but it would have given you the actual login details that you can go to. So, but don't fuss. We'll get the video shortly, and just make sure you do this. Okay. All right. So everyone's confirming. Debbie saying she's done it before. Absolutely. But if you haven't done it the last 3 months, do it again, Debbie, because it's very powerful when you do. Same with Temba, who's saying the same thing. Excellent. Thanks, Michael. All right, guys. So let's move on. All right. So that's phase one. That's the what that we want to master. And I want you to go on a mission. And please, if you can get hold of the book is called The Values Factor, The Values Factor by Dr. John DeMartini. Very worthwhile reading. We will talk more about values in business a little bit later from the context of John. And when I say a little bit later, as in, session 5 or 6, somewhere around there, so in a couple of weeks' time. So I'll bring you back to this. But do yourself a favor. You can get all the book. It's available in audiobook, is in Kindle and other variants, and also the physical books. Most of the bookstores will actually have it because John's very popular in South Africa. So check that out going forward. All right, let's move on. We have had a very disturbed first hour. Let's hope it goes nice and lekker smooth. Not hope, it will go nice and lekker smooth for the second. All right, so values, I leave that in your hands for now. Now we're going to talk about who. Who, in other words, who are you? And how do you best serve your business? Now, I touched on this. For those of you that bought the program, which was on the back of that webinar that I did, I very quickly touched on this concept of natural energy. And this is where we're going to explore it a little bit further. Okay, so if you're not familiar with this, pay attention. If you are, it's always good to refresh yourself on it as well. But the question we're really asking is, who are you and how do you best serve your business? In other words, based on who you are, what you independently, how can we be the best asset or the best contributor to our businesses, from the context of ourselves. And we're also going to deal with this more later on, because when we talk about teams, we bring it up. But I want to bring this to you in a way like this. Who should we listen to when it comes to advice from business? I'm going to share with you a whole lot of advice from billionaires. These are all self-made billionaires, all right? So they're in their own club. They are self-made billionaires. I'm going to share advice of theirs, and I want to ask you, who should you listen to? All right, so I'm going to do them in pairs. So the first two people you'll probably recognize. That's, of course, Warren Buffett on the left, and that's the late Steve Jobs on the right. And I'm going to give you advice. This is common advice. This is like advice that they've given repetitively, and they're known for giving. And we're going to see how sort of congruent it is amongst each of them. Now, remember, they're all self-made billionaires. You might not like them. You don't have to like them. I just want to show to you how that there's more than one way of doing something, and the advice is not congruent all the time. So first one, Warren Buffett says that patience and temperament lead to success. All right. So patience and temperament lead to success. Late Steve Jobs was notoriously bad-tempered and impatient, and he says innovation is the key to success. So who do we listen to? Who's right? Then we look at, and you'll obviously recognize Richard Branson on the right, but you may not recognize Rupert Murdoch, who's one of the media moguls in the world. And Rupert Murdoch says he has 2 phones with him at all times. And he says that success comes from never missing out on a deal. Whereas Mr. Richard Branson, you might not know this, but he doesn't carry a phone. And he has a team of people who do the deals because he says he is absolutely terrible at doing the deals himself. So who do we listen to? Interesting. Then we get, you'll definitely recognize Oprah. You won't probably recognize the guy on the right, but remember, they're all self-made billionaires. So Oprah Winfrey says success comes from having an impeccable personal brand that other people admire and respect. Okay, an impeccable personal brand that other people admire and respect. This guy is Jim Ratcliffe. He's the founder of Ionos Chemicals. He's known as Dr. No. He's reclusive, irritable, doesn't compromise, and couldn't care less what people think of him. Now, I know that characteristically, you're going to go, I'll go with Oprah for a lot of you. But the truth is, and there's actually going to be people in the room, I guarantee you, that listen to what Jim said and say, yeah, there's some truth in that, right? And that's because we're not all the same. So who do we listen to? Oprah, or do we listen to Jim? These are clearly like opposite pieces of advice that are coming from self-made billionaires, right? We can carry on. Yeah, here is Ingvar Kamprad, who's the founder of IKEA Furniture. And for a long time, you might have heard stories about Warren Buffett being very frugal and flying economy and all that kind of nonsense. It's actually rubbish. Warren, together with Bill Gates, owns the biggest private jet company in the United States, well, it's actually the biggest in the world, and he does not fly economy. But Igvar does. He's a self-made billionaire, and he flies economy. He has a 10-year-old car, and he says that success comes from people who are frugal. Now, I always get a little bit creepy when I put up Mr. Donald Trump, all right, because, we have seen a different side to Mr. Donald Trump that, not all of us really agree with. But he is still a self-made billionaire in business. And Donald has his own jet, a fleet of expensive cars, and says that success comes to people who look the part. All right. So one says be frugal. No one even knows. You look at Igvar, you wouldn't even know he was a billionaire. The other one says look the part. Make sure everyone knows that you're successful. Make sure you look the part of being successful. Then we get Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon. So he's obviously a self-made billionaire in a very big way. He says to be successful, you need a system so simple that everyone can follow it. George Soros, arguably one of the most successful traders of all time, as in stock market traders, he says to be successful, you should have no fixed systems and you should be reliant only on yourself. Who do we listen to? And lastly, I think we've got J.K. Rowling. Yes, even authors can become billionaires. All right. So J.K. is a billionaire, obviously the author of the Harry Potter series and numerous other ones now as well. She says, listen to your heart and not to the marketplace. It doesn't know what it wants until it sees it. Whereas Lakshmi Mittal, one of the founders of Mittal Steel, says that the numbers don't lie, so he doesn't stray from them. He says that emotions cause people to lose money. So who do we listen to? So there's the interesting fact, right? Who do you listen to? You listen to all of them. They're all right. But the problem is they don't all create success in the same way. Now, some of you would have related more to some people and to others, but it won't be consistent. If we all sit in a room, you will not all echo, yes, I go with that piece of advice versus yes, I go with that piece of advice. If I had to say pick one piece of advice, you would debate it and you would not all come up with the same piece of advice. And that is because you too are different. And the truth is, if there are different ways of playing the game of success or wealth or entrepreneurship, don't you agree that it would be important to know which way you should play it? Because you cannot play it. Let's put it this way. If I try to play the game of Warren Buffett, I would not succeed because I am a very different energy to Warren Buffett. I should be playing the game of Richard Branson or Steve Jobs. All right, I'll explain more now in more detail. And the point is because they play a different game. If Steve tried to play the game of Warren Buffett, he would see his backside. And if Warren tried to play the game of Richard Branson, he would see his backside. So at the end of the day, we are different. And this has actually been defined over thousands of years, starting with the Chinese, who originally wrote a book called the Book of I Ching, okay, which is loosely translated as the Book of Changes. And it was written about 5,000 years ago. My brother's a professor of Chinese philosophy, and it has never been determined exactly when this book was written. But I mean, it's crazy to think 5,000 years ago, the Chinese were writing philosophy and writing understanding of life. And the Book of I Ching was translated into German and found its way into the hands of Carl Jung, who's really the grandfather of psychometric testing. Or he's, in psychology, he's one of the grandfathers of psychology as a whole. Okay, and anyway, it's a long story, but Carl used the basis of the Book of I Ching and another book that he also got from his friend who had translated it from China, and to really determine how we determine the differences in people, that there are natural differences in people, and how can we work that out. So I want you to understand that this is not a concept that was made up recently. It's not a concept that some individual made up. It's actually a concept that is accepted in the context of us as humans on this planet, or as a kind of a big thing. And the mechanisms we use are new, but they are mechanisms using the same philosophy in order to determine what are we. So let's just explain it in a little bit of detail, because some of you are going, okay, interesting, and some of you are going, I'm confused. So let me just get this going. If we took a square and we spoke about there's two opposite dynamics that come into play, which originate in this understanding of energy. The first is the top and the bottom of the square. So if we had to say that the top is all about innovation and ideas, it's the ideas energy, all right? The bottom, which is an opposite dynamic, is the timing energy or the sensory energy. So yeah, we have now, some of you will already relate to this. Some of you are like me, where you head in the clouds, you're like visionary, you see opportunity in everything. Life is just like this crazy place, but you kind of love it, and you love doing things and creating things and making things happen. But when it comes to doing things the same over and over again, that kind of bores you. In fact, you're very good at starting things, but you're not always very good at finishing things, because when you start something, you kind of lose interest, right? You got a bit of ADD, okay? And, you tend to talk faster, think faster, act faster. You're spontaneous. You see opportunity in everything. You see solutions in everything. But in the actual doing, it's problematic. Because if you are innovation energy, if your ideas energy up at the top, and you could be in the middle, understand, I'll explain that just now. But if your ideas energy up at the top, your lack of natural energy is the slower, consistent, continuous delivery, doing the same thing over and over again. So, this is an interesting dilemma, because in business, we definitely need the innovative energy, but we also need the consistency energy. All right. So then you get the left and right dynamic, which is, what we call the action dynamic often. And the left and right dynamic are the people versus systems dynamic. So right-hand people are people. So some of you, if you could just have meetings with people all day, every day, you'd be happy. All right. If you're connecting with people, you will take the opportunity to meet and talk to somebody way over the opportunity of sitting behind a desk and doing an analysis or filling out a report or doing administration. All right. Some of you are very, very people orientated. You love connecting with people. And the odds are, if you are that kind of energy as a solid energy, you do not like doing administration. You do not like doing back-end work and recording things and analyzing things. However, systems people do. They are they would rather, they're more introvert, and they'd rather spend time analyzing things in business than actually connecting with people. All right. And, when we look at it from a context, people are all about magnifying, all about, people and the connection with people and how do we magnify things to make them bigger. Systems people are all about duplicating, multiplying. All right. So they're different energy completely. They think differently, they act differently, and they definitely, in terms of activities in a business, they do different things in terms of what they like doing versus what they don't like doing. So you have these energies: ideas energy, people energy, time and energy, systems energy. And it's interesting, they even ask different questions. Like ideas people naturally ask the what are we going to do? And they often answer it as well. All right. And then the people, of course, are asking who's going to do it? And the timing people are asking, when's it going to be done? And the systems people are asking, how are we going to do it? All right. And it's quite frustrating if you're an ideas person and you've got a systems person with you and you're going like, this is what we're going to do. And the systems person going like, how are we going to do this? And it's like, come on, that's, if the why is big enough, the how will take care of itself. I think John DeMartini says that, which is like not always true in the context of an operation. So it's interesting. So there are 8 profiles. This is something that I'm going to share with you now called Contribution Compass, which is one of the testing systems you can use. And they actually use the terms activating energy versus sustaining energy, and inspiring energy versus the tempering energy. All right. And activators are good at getting things going. Now, interesting, as a catalyst, which is one of the primary activating energy, I can come into a project that's been going for a while that's stalled, and I will get it going again with enthusiasm and with, lots of energy. But, so it's not to say that we only start things well. We can actually finish things well as long as they other things that we came in towards the end for. However, if we start something and we have to finish it, and it's a 6-month implementation, that we lose energy, all right, because we like new things and to do things differently. So if you look at those words, activating, good at getting things going, good at re-energizing things, sustaining, good at doing things consistently, all right, good at making sure that we deliver on the promise all the time. Not the same energies. Inspiring energy, all about inspiring people. We inspire leadership. We inspire people to do the best and the most. We're great leaders as people. Whereas you have tempering energy, which is all about tempering is improving the outcome of an existing system. Okay, so we look at what we have and we say, how do we get this to be more efficient and more effective? And we do that by measuring. We do that by analyzing. We do that by making improvements based on that information. So you can clearly see they're all important. Now, there are 8 profiles, all right? So on the square, you'd have them on each corner and on each line. Okay, with the compass, the contribution compass, you'll see them pop up just now, because I'm going to use that as the actual defining factor. And some of you might have done Wealth Dynamics. That's the same kind of system. And the 8 profiles in Wealth Dynamics echo the 8 profile contribution compass. We choose to use contribution compass because, number one, it's a bit cheaper, a bit more affordable, but also it is, we believe, more accurate. We've actually been party to the development of contribution compass, and it's far more related to, it's far more designed to help with team dynamics as well. The contribution compass is the principle of how do we best contribute to our business, and that becomes true for all our team as well. So I'm talking very much from you perspective, but truthfully, the real power of this is not just you, but who you connect with, and that's why we'll talk about it again in a few weeks' time. All right, so let's look at the profiles as per the contribution compass, just very quickly. All right. Because again, you can explore this a little bit further. So the catalyst is north. I'm a catalyst, all right? And the catalyst is, like we said, pure innovative energy, fast thinking, fast acting, spontaneous, and, visionary, can see things, can create opportunities, brilliant at producing better products, improving products, and even inventing products sometimes. So Thomas Edison was a catalyst, for instance, and Richard Branson is a catalyst, and Steve Jobs is a catalyst, and Bill Gates is a catalyst. And everyone goes like, "Ooh, I want to be a catalyst," because all these cool people are catalysts. But it's not true, because there's many other successful people in different energies. So catalysts are prone to entrepreneurship because they tend to be a little bit unemployable. And I know many catalysts who ended up becoming CAs and were not very happy people for 20 years while they practiced as an accountant, because that's not the natural energy to repetitively report and record things and analyze things. So we don't do that well with that. We need teams around us, and we need teams of people that make our things happen effectively. So if you look at Richard Branson, the key to Richard's success is putting the right people around him. Okay, so that's a critical, if you read his books, you'll see that is the critical flow of ensuring that Virgin is a successful company and all the subsidiaries are successful companies as well. So activators, you could be a catalyst. Some of you will relate to that. Or you could be what we call a champion. So champion is like northeast, all right? A champion is all about kind of shining the light. A champion is very good at taking the ideas, energy, and connecting with people. So very good at marketing, very good at branding. And you'll see in the marketing brand industry a lot of champions. And champions can either shine the light on themselves or they can shine the light on other people. So you will know many champions because they are often celebrities or famous people, like Oprah Winfrey is a champion. Because Oprah created a brand around Oprah Winfrey. Tony Robbins is a champion, and he created a brand around Tony Robbins. And, we often, as champions, they often name their companies after themselves. But that's not all champions. Some champions are not all about shining the light on themselves. They're just very good at shining the light on other people. If you have a friend who's a champion and you're not, maybe you're a catalyst, a champion's really helpful in helping you articulate things and determine how things should be positioned, because they connect the ideas with the people. Does it make sense? So champions are very good at selling, aggressive selling in particular, very good at marketing, very good at anything that is about people with the ideas and innovation in them as well. All right, then we move around the compass further and we get the coach. And the coach is all about inspiring people. It's all about connecting with people. By the way, famous champions include people like, and I've just gone blank, come on. What are the well-known? I mentioned Oprah Winfrey. Why am I going blank? All right. Oprah Winfrey, there's Bill Clinton was a champion, for instance. When we talk about champions, we talk about the well-known people, but they use themselves as their brand. The brand often built around them. Whereas when we get to the coach, we're talking about people like Jack Walsh, who turned, for the second time in its history, turned General Electric around. And Jack, became a billionaire just being a CEO of a company. So because coaches are very good at leading people. And if you read any of the books by Jack Welch, you will find they're about leadership. And he will talk about the vision and integrating the vision into people. Because people are about people. They're very good at hiring the right people. They're very good at getting the most out of people. They're very good at inspiring people. All right. The opposite energy to coach, which we'll talk about just now, thinks that they're good at this sometimes, but they're not. My dad, for instance, who started 69 businesses, is the opposite energy to coach. It's called a conductor energy. And he always says, even today, he's 80 years old, and we'll talk about stuff and he'll say, but I was good with people. And I'm like, we look at his history, and he's had like 3 major failures because he's become a multi-millionaire and then lost it all again and stuff. And I looked at him and said, Dad, let's look at every time that you failed, what was the common denominator? And it was an association or partnership with other people that fell apart. All right. And he's like, no, but I'm good with people. I'm like, let's understand. This is not your natural strength. You analyze and sit in, he's pedantic. He's like a perfectionist. He analyzes everything, scrutinizes everything, in terms of measuring stuff and what have you. And that's his natural energy. But coaches are, very strong at leading teams and even creating teams going forward, okay? And then we move around to the connector. And the connector energy, so Donald Trump, believe it or not, is a connector energy. If you look at the history of Donald's very good at he's not doing so well in politics because he keeps connecting people into his team and then firing their asses because they're not doing what he expects them to do. He should never have got into politics. That's as simple as that. It's not in his natural energy, and it's definitely not in his natural characteristics or in his characteristics and you know that many of his well-known friends actually advised heavily against him getting into politics. And the fruit of what we're witnessing of this poor man and his chaos is actually the fruit of why he should never have got into politics. But anyway, he is good at connecting people. He is good at putting the right people into the right places. So he actually says that about himself. He's really good at people. He actually is good at connecting people with opportunities, people with people, but particularly people with opportunities and responsibilities. Okay, so he's not doing so well. Thanks, Donald. Not doing so well from a government perspective, from the President of the United States perspective. But this is actually one of his strengths. This is how he became very good in real estate, because he built a lot of things which he didn't own, he didn't keep, he sold them. But he built them very efficiently and very effectively, and he knew how to, maximize the profits and returns on things that he created. And it was all about his connections with people as a whole. So connectors are not just about connecting people; they can connect opportunities with opportunities and systems with systems. But their real strength, because they are people energy, they're about timing. The connector will hang on to a relationship for 5 years before they even do business with a person, because they are sensory based. Whereas a champion will kind of connect with people, but want to connect with new people by not having that natural sensory energy. So people are about people, and timing is the connector phase, type of profile. Custodian. So just like that, a custodian looks after something of value, right? So custodian are all about living up to the promise and constantly delivering on a continuous basis. Many businesses need custodian energy to ensure, especially if you're a service-based business, or especially if you're doing a regular service on a large scale to many people, you need custodians to make sure they operate like that. But all businesses ultimately need that energy to make sure that we deliver effectively over time. So in wealth creation, custodians are very good at trading because they're very much sensory. So they're good at buying and selling at the right times. All right. I would always say buy high, sell low, and no, it's not. Sorry, it's buy, exactly, because it's not my natural energy. It's buy low, sell high. So, in working environments, custodians are very good at managing stock and getting the right deals. They'll know when to spend extra money on extra stock because it's a good deal and will, manifest in the long hand. They're very good at trading as well. So George Soros, that we spoke about earlier, he's a custodian, for instance, and made a lot of money out of trading commodity or trading stocks as a whole. So it's, they're very timing based, and they're good people to look after money, as an example, versus, many of us that are high energy that are actually far too emotional to look after money and to make rational decisions around money. So I make sure that my money is managed by custodians, okay, because their rationality, I often just leave them with it, just look at the outcomes, but don't get too emotionally involved. And then cultivators. So cultivators, so Warren Buffett is a cultivator. All right. So if you think about it, how does Warren really generate his success as a business? He buys businesses and he holds onto them. He cultivates them to get the maximum result out of them as a whole. And, then he will only sell when he has something else to buy or whatever. And that made him the richest man in the world many times. So cultivators are people that are actually very good in a business environment of doing things like accounts. They're very good at bookkeeping, recording things, because they're system orientated, but with a sensory. So, accounting is about recording things on a sensory basis, on a specific timing basis. And they're very good at that kind of energy. But they're very much about systems and timing. And so very close to the custodians, they're part of that equation of really running the back end of your business and making it work effectively. And then I mentioned the conductor earlier. My dad's a conductor, and conductors are like a conductor in an orchestra. They have all these different components, and they're very good at making all these components work well together. But they don't do it by people orientation. That's where they sometimes fall short. They do it by system orientation. So they might not be the nicest people, and it tends to be their way or the highway, okay? But at the end of the day, they're very good at getting the most out of components, as a conductor would do. And they measure things. So they're not there to say, you're a nice person, you're doing a good job. They measure and they look at a piece of paper or a report and they say, yes, you're doing your job or you're not, okay? And they from those measurements that are often given to them by the cultivators, they make determinant decisions as to what they should change inside a business or operation. Then lastly, we have what's called a calibrator. And a calibrator is much like a calibrator who really sort of tweaks things and makes them work better. The calibrator is really good at having ideas for systems. So, Joe Kroc, Ray Kroc, who, of course, a movie was made about recently and turned out not to be the nicest person in the world. But Ray is very much a calibrator energy. So he took the system that the McDonald's created and he perfected it in a money-making machine. All right. So we can argue that the McDonald's didn't intend McDonald's to be unhealthy. Believe it or not, we can argue they wanted quality, which is true. If you look at the story, if you watch the movie, you'll see that echoed by them. Whereas Ray was just all about effectiveness, efficiency, and consistency. But he built the systems. He didn't run them. He didn't run a McDonald's. He didn't work at McDonald's. He didn't run the operation of the business. He envisioned it and he materialized it through his envision. So again, that ideas you can see is fast thinking, fast acting, because he's more the innovative energy, the activating energy, but tempering. So he's good at mixing those two together. So I hope I've given you a pretty good overview of different types of people and different types of energies. And for some of you might be going, I think I'm that energy. I think I'm that energy. The truth is you can think very wrong. And believe you me, because you get things called shadow energy. I'm not going to go into all of this in depth, but a lot of people often go, I'm definitely a champion. And actually they're a cultivator when they do the test. So it's important to know who we are for two reasons. So from a personal perspective, how should we play the game? How should we play the game? If we're a catalyst, well, then we've got to play the game like Richard Branson and Steve Jobs played the game. But if we're a custodian, we've got to look at how custodians play the game to succeed in business as a whole. Now, most entrepreneurs, most people start businesses are in the top 5. So the coach, the champion, the catalyst, the calibrator, the conductor, because innovation tends to be one of the sparks to starting businesses, okay? And the bulk of them you'll probably find across the top 3. But there are people in business in all of them, and you may be any one of these 8 energies. So the question is, what is your energy? I hope you realize it's important to know what your natural energy is. It's even more important when it comes to building teams and working with people, which we'll talk about in a few days' time or in a couple of weeks' time. So how do we determine what our energy is? Like I said, don't guess it, rather actually do a test. So the guys at Contribution Compass developed a test, which you do online, and it's a whole series of questions that are slightly complicated, but easy enough for most of us to relate to. And you have a rating of 1 to 10. 1 to 5, sorry. So there's like an absolute yes, which would be a 1, and an absolute no, which I can't remember which order it is, but the one extreme is absolute no, the other extreme is absolute yes, and you do the middle. And this is very important to get an accurate outcome. So the test takes about 20 minutes. And off the back of the test, I say 20, rather schedule about 30 minutes to be safe, because if you sensory energy, you'll probably think through it more. If you're higher energy, you'll probably go through it faster. But you don't want to rush it unnecessarily. You want to think. Don't overthink each question either. Go instinctively with what comes to you, because that's normally the right answer or the right equation. And it is designed to allow for some mistakes, okay, because sometimes we think we're good at something when we're not. But it's very, very powerful, and it'll take about 20 to 30 minutes to do the online test. You will then get an 18-page detailed PDF report. Please read the report or print it out, keep it with you. So it's going to tell you what your profile is. It's also going to tell you how your split of the 4 energies are, because that's also important to certain factors going forward. But it's also going to tell you about all the other profiles. It's going to tell you about how to relate to those, how to lead from the context of your profile. And that's important as well. So, it's quite a lot of information that you actually get out of doing this test that is actually of value to you as a business owner, and how you should operate your business and how you should connect with other people, that are going to connect in your business as a whole. You'll also get a special login to the Contribution Compass area where you can actually review. So if you've got a team, make sure you tell our team that when you sign up that you've got multiple people you want to put under you, because then it does a comparative of the whole team, and there's actually tools that shows you the overall energy of your business. Because in a perfect world, we'd have equal energy of the 4 energies across the business. Obviously, that's not always perfect, but we can often determine the problems we see in business by the lack of fundamental energies within that business. So it's great to know what your other team members are and also how they fit into the overall energy spectrum of the business. And then you'll become part of the community. These guys will talk to you. They'll send you information, and you're welcome to interact with them, once they connect with you. They're really good guys. And it's a really, really good team. The two creators, Carl and Belinda, are really special people. Belinda's actually an I Ching master. When you meet her, you'll never think that because she's a business person. But so she was really the process of ensuring that we use the right energies and understandings from its ancient concept. And Carl is a leading specialist in business internationally. And it's a very, very powerful system. So you can actually do this test for only 995 Rand for a token. Okay. Now, some people go like, Brian, it's a lot of money. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's money. Shouldn't I just guess what I am? I sort of roughly know what my energy is. Isn't that good enough? Guys, for 995 bucks, think about it. It's nothing. It's nothing. I mean, think about it when you talk about stock, because a lot of people go, I don't know if I should test, or should I test all my staff? Should I test my team? And we're like, guys, how much do you pay them? Even a low-end person that works in your company is going to be earning $5,000 a month. That's 60,000 Rand a year. And you're worried about whether you should spend 995 Rand to determine what their natural energy is and how to get them more productive and how to get them to work better and happier inside your business. So it is actually a small investment. Please understand. And, Wealth Dynamics is $97. So that's closer to 1,300 bucks. So it's not much difference, but we really like this one. And 995 bucks, you can get a token. So we're going to give you an opportunity to do this right now, because if you are intrigued by what we've spoken about and say, I want to know what I am, and possibly even what my team members are, my partners or my associates or my team, then we're going to give you an opportunity to buy some of these tokens right now. And we really encourage you to do this, because we talk about this in many aspects when we talk about all the other aspects of success in business, right? Because energy comes into play a lot of the time. So there's a whole section on it coming up in module 6, I think. But it's a very, very powerful tool to utilize, all right? So we'll also add you to our little group where we talk about Contribution Compass sort of once every 6 weeks or so. And if, a number of you guys come in, we'll probably even do a dedicated webinar maybe to discuss it a little bit further and to answer some questions you might have about it. So I want to give you the opportunity. So we're going to get a little bit messy here. We're going to go out of the presentation because I have to. We're going to go to the live broadcast page, which is going to go all funny because it's showing itself over and over again. And I'm going to go to the offer section, and I'm going to click on CC tokens, and I'm going to go load, and I'm going to go display offer. And so you are going to see the purchase contribution compass tokens opportunity. Click to buy now. There is discounts for if you're a larger business, you need more than 10 tokens. There are discounts. So just to make sure it's working, if we click buy now, it'll take you through to, yes, it's our events system. We're just trying to make it easy for you to use the same system so that it's familiar, because if we use different systems, it just means you have to register all the time and add in stuff all the time. So you'll see on the event system here, you can get a contribution compass tokens for $9.95. It's inclusive of that. You can order, up to 9 for them at that price. If you order 10 or more, you can pay $8.95. So it's slightly reduced. It's a 10% deduction. So you'll see there, this is for a minimum of 10 or more. Okay. So for those that have bigger companies, purchase a bunch of them, save a little bit of money. It's worthwhile. It is absolutely 100% one of the best things that have ever come out to help small businesses and small business owners and entrepreneurs to actually find their correct path and how they should ultimately succeed in business. And it is critical. I will not work with somebody. If I hire a contractor, we will profile them. I will definitely not coach anybody without knowing what their profile is. I will not hire anyone without even knowing what their profile is. And I will normally profile, I will get to 3 or 4 people that I want to hire, one of those, and I'll profile all of them at my expense. Believe you me, the money this has saved me is way, 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 way more than the little cost of having to profile 3 candidates for a job. It's incredibly powerful. I will not, even if I have a girlfriend or somebody, my brother is profiled, my friends are profiled. And I'll tell you why, because it helps us to understand them better. When you realize somebody's a very different energy to you, you realize they don't think and act like you do. And so it gives you a kind of empowerment to actually better connect with people. Again, we'll talk more about that later on. So please click on the offer. If you want to buy one, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. I'm going to take some questions. We're going to wrap up on some time management in a few minutes. Not wrap up, we still got half an hour, but it's quite a lot to get through. So we're going to talk about the when section of the personal mastery as well. But in the interim, I want you guys to buy these. I want you guys to do this. Please, Sally, I'm assuming, just confirm with me that anyone that buys now will receive their email this evening to actually be able to do their test. Just confirm that with me, Sal, in Skype. Because I'm assuming as you see people buying, you're just going to probably start adding them to the system. But just confirm that with me, Sally. Yes, we'll do. There we go. Thanks, Sal. All right. So, literally you can be doing your test this evening and you can get your results. And that's going to be helpful in the path forward that we're going on. It's going to be exceptionally helpful for you to do that. So, guys, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant opportunity. Please take advantage of it. I'm just going to mute myself for a couple of seconds. Then, and please, if you have any questions you want to ask in the meantime, I will spend 5 minutes answering questions in the chat box. So please feel free to answer any questions, and I will happily answer those. But literally 5 minutes. That's how long you've got to go and buy as well. So please go and purchase. Take opportunity of that. It's not available anywhere else because it's a relatively new system. Well, it's a couple of years old, but it's not publicly available. You have to get it through one of the partners. So, take advantage of that and get yourself some profiles and make sure you know what your profile is. And get some for your staff or your partners or your associates or even your family. Don't ask a 6-year-old child to do a profile if they're not going to understand the logic. But children from about teens, I would say, are capable of doing the test themselves as well. Yes, Sally, it is set to private. That's just so that it's not publicly available. But it should. If people click on it, they'll be able to get through to it. Samuel, no, the offer is not only valid for this class. We're just encouraging people to do it as soon as possible because it will help through the process of the course as well, and we'll refer to it on more than one occasion. However, click on it or save the link if you need to check something out. But as much as possible, try and get what you need now so that we can maximize that going forward. Doesn't accept my payment, Louise says. What do you mean by that, Louise? Does it say... it doesn't go through? Yeah, that's an open-ended. It's not the greatest system in the world. Online systems can be a little bit predictable or unpredictable sometimes. But if you are trying to get a profile and struggling, please just let us know in the team. Our team will try and help you as much as possible. Rudolph, not in every session, but like I said at the beginning of the sessions, we are encourage you to expand your learning in different angles. This is the tool. This is a particular tool, so we do kind of recommend that you look at this. The others are entirely up to you. So if you want to expand in a particular area of your business beyond what we teach in the module, you can choose that. But like I said, we will be offering stuff on a regular basis. So use your own discretion, and most of our stuff has got a cooling off period. So if you feel pressurized to buy it. And if the next day you realize it was a mistake, just let our team know. Also, if you purchase something, particularly programs, and another program comes along and you'd rather do that, just let our team know and they can credit the one and move it to the other. We try and help you as much as that. But yes, we do share with you, various opportunities through the program as well. So, Michael, you managed to do it without a problem. Nikki's struggling as well. Louise is struggling. And Z, we will send you a link, okay? Or just click on it now and save the link, or just keep it open. You can do it a little bit later. Cannot process payment firewall. Same problem as Nikki. Oh, dear. Interesting. All right, so I tell you what, if you can get it online now, get it online. But everyone that wants it, whether you bought it online or not, type in, I want profiles, and we will contact you and make sure it happens afterwards as well. So just type in the questions box, I want profiles. If you've purchased, even if you've purchased them, just type in, I want profiles. If you have purchased them, just put in brackets, have purchased, so that we can make sure. But anyone that's struggling with it in particular, type in, I want profiles or I want tokens. And Sally, if we can just make a note of those people, and then we can follow up with them as well going forward. No one's asking any questions about the profiling. You're just all obviously talking about actually trying to acquire them. So I'm going to give it another minute, and then we're going to carry on with the teaching. All right, remember, type in, I want profiles. All right, and if you bought like Kalabacheli has just done, you just put in bought so that we know we don't have to help you, but we know we'll just check the system and make sure nothing goes wrong. Purchased already, thanks, Terence. Okay, so guys are able to purchase. I'm only seeing the guys that were struggling. But if you are struggling, make sure I want profiles. You type it in so that we can sort it out for you. Lebo, is that what we call you? Be easier, I suppose, if I remember that. I1 profile. Remember, guys, just type in I1 profile if you want us to help you, or if you've even bought, just let us know, and we'll sort you out going forward from that as well. All right. Let's move on, though. Hopefully, those that needed to buy have managed to buy. Those that are stuck have let us know, and we'll try and pop you a mail as well, just for those that are really struggling, and see if we can help you on that basis. Otherwise, our team will contact you and sort you out one way or another. And let's try and get you profiled as soon as possible. It is very valuable to have that available going forward as a whole. Okay, guys are still typing in. All right, so let's move on back to the presentation. And let's move here. And we're now going to talk for the rest of this session. So there's another piece that was going to be in the session. I'll move that across to the next session because I don't want to keep it as close to 6 as possible. It's not your fault we struggled at the beginning, but we will make up for that in other sessions as well. So, all right, so that's the token, which is up there. So you can click on it if you want to go and get it. Remember to type in I want profile if you're having any problems acquiring the profiles at all. So let's talk about when. So this is quite an important one. So I want you to pay attention. Definitely have pen and paper. There is a section in the book on this. Team, if you can maybe tell me the number in the manual if you've got it, because I don't have a manual with me in my car where I'm sitting doing this. But there's a section on the book on the sort of productivity or the when section. And you can go and explore some of what we're going to talk about further. And there might be some stuff there that we don't actually talk about in the presentation. So we're going to look into that as a whole. So this is all about productivity. The biggest challenge that a lot of people have is time. You know, it's the common excuse I hear all the time. I mean, people didn't want to come to the session. They struggled with time and they haven't had the time to catch up on it. I hear it already in my interaction with, you guys as students of this course. Time is something we struggle with. And interesting thing, and I've said it many times before, we only have 1,440 minutes, we have 1,440 minutes. And it's the same for everyone. So clearly, one of the things we need to do is we need to learn how to use that time more effectively. How to use that time more effectively. So we're going to talk about a couple of techniques here from some of my friends that I believe are really good. The first one, pay attention to this, might be something you want to do. But before we get going, I want you to list your projects. Now, I'll explain this now. Guys, team, have you guys got a manual? I need to open the manual. So I have to try and remember where it is. My battery's not going to last too much longer as well. Charge the battery because I see I'm on battery here. So hopefully we'll get through to 6 o'clock. God forbid I suddenly disappear. That means my battery died. But I'm sure 33% should handle it. Let me actually just bring the screen down a bit so that it uses less power on that. So the manual. Team, have you guys got a manual? Let me just check. Sally, Maritza, have you got a manual in front of you? So inside your manual, in the first section, there's the planning section. I can't remember the page numbers. If somebody finds it, please let me know. Sally, we don't. So let's do that in future. Let's all have manuals so we can reference them because I don't have one on my computer either. So inside the planning section, you can do this on a pen and paper for now, okay? But in the planning section, there's a thing called business plan. So you got your personal plan. So this is the first half of the manual, first like 90 pages or something. There's a personal plan. There's that same place where you put in all the stuff we filled in last week, which was your big, crazy, audacious goal and your skills development. And then after that, you get the personal plan, which is a whole lot of planning systems for you personally. We're going to give you some videos on how to use that later on in the course. Then you got your business plan. And so in business, we like to identify projects. So let's not get caught on the plan. And if you can't see the manual, don't worry, because it's just a place to fill it out. Do it on a blank piece of paper for now. I want you to identify the core projects. And one of the ways I did this for myself is I went to look at if you did the exercises on Monday, I went to look at my big, crazy, audacious goal and the five focuses that I wrote down for that, the 5 moves, the 5 major moves that I identified for that. And those actually translated often to my projects. Now, projects can be anything. I want to increase my team. Many of you will have a project. I want to make more money. In other words, be specific. I want to make, I want to increase revenue by 3 million rand or something as a project in your business. So if we think of projects, a project in your business is a focal area in your business. I want you to try and identify and try not have more than 5. What are the 5 most important focal areas inside your business? It's page 127. That's the productivity planner. Yeah, 127 for the product. But before we get onto that, identify the projects. What are the key projects? You can call it the key goals, but we like to call it projects because projects aren't always, they sometimes have multiple goals in them. Right? So one might be financial, one might be to build a better team, one might be to launch a project, launch a new product or new service. If you're starting a business, it might be to start the business, might be something to do with your educational growth, might be to create better systems in your business. These could all be focal projects that you focus on in your business. So we group in a whole lot of stuff under them, but there's going to be lots of activities and different things that have to happen to make it happen. But what are the core projects? All right. And these projects should be the things that will take your business the furthest. They will have the greatest impact on your business. And that's why if they're aligned with your big, crazy, audacious goal that we spoke about on Monday, that means, they will be the things that will take you towards your big, crazy, audacious goal. All right. But if you didn't do that, or if you missed that, just think of what you want to achieve in your business and what are the 5 things that will have the greatest impact towards achieving that. And we call those the projects in your business. So we want you to identify your 5 projects. So I'm going to give you like a minute to do that. If you haven't really written, please don't write down stories. You just want to need to build a better team, need to make an extra $5 million, whatever, raise money for this, launch this product, write a book, whatever the projects might be. And if you write more than 5, try and narrow it down to 5 critical components. Okay. So I spent a couple of minutes doing that, and I will be with you in a couple of seconds, in a minute or 2. All right. So hopefully you've identified some projects. I know I made you do that with not a lot of time. It's not essential that you finish it. Put it as one of your homework items for straight afterwards if you still want to think through it. But in our planning process, we always refer to it as projects, which are the focal areas that we need to focus on in our business to move it, strategically forward. And because obviously you came into the Real Entrepreneur because you want to become a real entrepreneur, some of those key components that we're going to be talking about throughout the next, number of sessions are going to be related to projects. So you can always add to this and evolve it. And by the end of the session, when we start, getting you back into your plan, and you might want to review it from that perspective because you might have a different view on what's most important, etc., going forward. But the reason I asked you just to look at that to start off with is this technique I want to show you, which is from my good friend Brendan Bouchard, called the Productivity Planner, the One-Day Productivity Planner. And this is a really cool technique. Now, I use it. And we've actually combined 2 techniques here. So one by Brian Tracy and one by Brendan Bouchard. But I know a lot of people who swore it's changed their lives. Okay, so this is like a daily productivity planner. So in Brendan's terms, you'll start each day with this. You could also end your day preparing for the next day like this. So the first thing, he calls it the 3 Ps. The first thing is we list our projects. So when we know our critical projects are A, B, C, D, E, F, then we write them down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And Brendan says also, just to keep it front of mind, because we so often get caught up in the chaos of business that we forget the critical things that we need to focus on to take our business to the next level. So by ensuring that every day you remind yourself what those critical things are, the odds are you're going to end up working on them at some stage. And so Brendan says you can also actually write down like 5 things, up to 5 things that you could do to take this project forward. So again, just refresh, there's project planning templates you can use to do that, or planning templates. But it's nice to keep it front of mind, and writing it down creates a neurological connection with it. So you might want to write down there, look, I want to write my book, as my major project for this year. I also want to build a better team. I also want to launch this product, and I also want to make an extra $1 million. These could be your projects for your business. And so basically, then you just say to myself, we're making an extra $1 million, so we need to focus on our marketing strategy and changing this, and the new product, we need to do this and this in order to get it going forward. And to write the book, I need to start with this and this. And you just keep reminding yourself, these are the critical things, and these are the things that will take those things forward. Okay, so it doesn't have to be 5 things, it can just be 1 or 2, but you keep it in front of mind. Very important. In the chaos of life, the odds are 9 out of 10 times you forget the most critical things. So when we look at the bigger picture outside, as in working on the business, we identify critical things that we need to focus on. When we're in the business, in the chaos, doing all day, we lose sight of those very often. Okay, I'm sure you can relate to that. So first thing we do, identify the projects each day. Remind ourselves what's most important, what should we do. You might not even work on them in that day, but you're reminding yourself on a daily basis that exists. The second thing we do is the people. All right. So Brendan says one of our greatest failings with time management is the amount of time we spend in our inbox. And he likes to say that the inbox is nothing more than a convenient organizing place for other people's agendas. So, so often the inbox dictates what we do, and we don't do the critical things. So this is one of the techniques he talks about. He says, firstly, before you even go near your inbox, you should be doing all of this, all right? So you make a list of the people you need to reach out to today. So people you need to reach out to, people you need to contact, because you need something from them, you need some information from them. They could even on a personal level be people that you really want to just connect with. But who are you going to reach out to? You want your list of your 6 or 7 people, or your 1 or 2, or your 0 people that you need to reach out to today. All right. And then secondly, look for people that you're waiting on. Now, people that you're waiting on are people that you're waiting for them to send you something, a proposal, a quote, some information that's critical to moving forward, whatever it might be. You are either waiting on people, or you're going to reach out to people. You want to make a list of those people so that it's clear right at the beginning of the day who you're waiting on and who you're reaching out to. Now, Brendan says, I'll make an exception here, and you can go into your inbox at this stage to see if any of the people you're waiting on have responded. So you skim it. You don't look at stuff. Ignore everything. And just look through and look for those people that you're waiting on and see if any of them have responded to you overnight or from the previous day. And if so if Joe Soap is on your list of waiting on, and you see actually Joe sent me the stuff already by email, you can cross it off. Or if he hasn't and he was supposed to have done it yesterday, you can add him to the people I need to reach out to. Okay, because if you're chasing something from somebody, that would be reaching out to them. All right, so you're dictating in advance who you're going to contact and who you're waiting on. All right, very, very powerful. I promise you'll be surprised how profoundly powerful this is. It stops that chaos of everyone is urgent and I've got to contact everyone, I've got to respond to everyone all the time. There's a section which I'm not going to touch on here called Yesterbox. It's in your manuals, written by Tony Hsieh. And Yesterbox is a system that Tony Hsieh developed, who's a very, very popular guy who stays in touch with all 2,500 staff plus his clients. And he has this issue by getting far too many emails, hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. And so he has this thing where every email that comes in today goes into a folder that will only be viewed tomorrow. So he calls it the Yesterbox folder. All right. So he will never look at an email that came in on the day that it came in. He will always only look at it 24 hours later. The power of that is that a lot of these urgency bugs that come in are already resolved and don't require your attention anymore. And you don't have that, I have to respond to this immediately, because, this is sometimes this crazy obsession that we have with email and phone for that matter, and Facebook for that matter. So bear that in mind. So you want to list who we need to reach out to today and who we are waiting on today. And then lastly, we want the priorities. What are the main things we have to complete today? So now we're making a list. It's our to-do list. These are the things we have to do today. So when we do the to-do list, I'm going to bring in another technique now. that you can also explore further in your manual. And you guys that bought the pack, in fact, all of you, I think, that will get an audio version of this technique from Brian Tracy, as part of your after pack as well, which is kind of cool. So we make a list of all the things we have to do today. So in this case, it's the list of all the things we have to complete today. After we've defined the projects and the next steps, and after we've made a list of who we need to reach out to and who are we waiting on, then we make the to-do list, okay? Now, I want you to do this technique, which is called Eat the Frogs. So when you finished your to-do list, which might have, 20 or 10 or 15 things on it, if you really organize them, I'd only have 3. That would be nice. But often it's a bit of a list, right? I want you to scan through the list. Take a little bit of time to do this. Scan through the list and identify the one thing that if you could only do one thing today, imagine just, you were commanded, you would be killed if you did more than one thing. So choose one thing that will have the greatest impact on your business and life. So if you could only complete one thing, what would it be? What is the one thing out of all those lists of things that you said you need to complete or work on today that is going to have the greatest impact on your business or life? We call it the frog, because amazingly, because the frog often you might find is one of the project things, that you've been procrastinating on. Amazingly, people procrastinate on that frog. They get caught up in all the chaos, like we do all the other stuff, and we somehow never get around to doing the frog. And so that most important thing is often, not always, but often the thing that we don't do. So when we identify the frog, and there's other frogs, and you can listen to Brian's audio to learn more about that. There's also stuff written in the manual from Brian Tracy on that. But when we identify that key frog, and his rule is this: once you've identified that frog, the most important thing that you could do today or complete today is that frog, that one item on your list. All right, identify it, circle it, put hashtags next to it, or whatever, stars next to it, make sure it stands out. Use a highlighter. Do that frog first. In other words, the minute you finish doing this one-day planner, you get going on the frog. And Brian's advice is that you do it and you do not stop working on it until it's completed, even if it is the only thing that you've done. See, listen to the logic. You've identified the most important thing. If you could only do one thing, the thing that would have the greatest impact on your business or life, and you are going to prioritize it as the thing that you're going to focus on first and foremost today, even if it takes you the whole day and you don't get to do any of the other stuff. Scary, but profound, powerful. You get to do the critical things. So frogs, and there's other terminologies around the frog. Eat That Frog. It's the number one best productivity book in the world today. And we have given you, I think we've given it to you after. I don't think it was in your pre-pack. I think it's in your after-pack. You'll get the audio on that. If you're the Success Club, you'll actually find that in the Success Club as well. But don't wait. You've got some stuff in your manual, which is enough to work on. But I want you to use this technique, okay? Identify your projects. What are the next steps on them? Identify who you need to reach out to, who you are waiting on. Identify your priority list of activities that you have to do today, and identify the one item on that list that is more powerful. And occasionally there'll be two very important ones. Then do number one, then do number two afterwards. Brian will actually teach you the ABCDE method, where you actually rate the items. So you start with the A's, which are the most important things. But it's a profoundly powerful tool to use. Okay, so many of us make lists, and many of us don't do it. And this analogy actually came from a Mark Twain book. I'm not sure which book or Mark Twain writing. I think it might have been a short article he wrote or something. But it's this whole basis of if you had to eat a live frog every day. So imagine you woke up every morning and next to your bed was a live croaking frog in a glass of water, and you have to eat that frog today. What many people do is they say, you know what, I will get to it later. It's not a nice thing to do. I don't want to eat the live frog. It's going to be squishy and squirmy, and it's going to bleed all over my mouth. And I'm sure most of you think about it. It's not a nice thing to do. I have had an occasional person in my room says, I'll do that. That's cool, because I'm a survival specialist and eating live frogs is not an issue. But that's obviously the exception. So for most people, it's not a nice thought to have. So the trick is, if you procrastinate and you say, I'm going to do that later, let me get some other stuff done. So you look at that frog and you go, I'm going to come to you later. A couple of things happen. Firstly, you carry the burden of knowing that this important thing that you have to do, whether you like it or not, you are procrastinating on. So you carry this burden through the day, knowing that this thing that you need to do is there. And you feel disempowered and you feel demotivated, and you're doing all this other stuff because you're trying to keep yourself busy, but you're not doing the most important thing. The other thing that happens very often in the real world is you choose not to eat the frog. So you end the day, but you have to eat it, but you choose to delay it. And what happens with the item that you don't complete on a day, you move them to the next day. And you'll notice that frogs tend to end up being the items you constantly are moving to the next day and the next day and the next day, wishing they will disappear. Because they're not always pleasant things, but they're sometimes unpleasant things, but critical. Sometimes they are pleasant things, but they're complicated. And this is why they've become frogs. This is why you have been procrastinating on them. So guys, understand this is profoundly powerful. And I promise you, this one exercise can truly transform your productivity on a day-by-day basis. So that's one that I want you to potentially use. It's in your manual, so you can go and refresh it or review it anytime you want to, but it's a really, really powerful tool. How many of you would agree that if you did this every day, it might increase your productivity effectively? How many of you agree if you did it every day, not the weekends maybe, but at least every working day, that this would help you ensure that you did the things that are truly most important on a day-by-day basis and ensure that you stay focused on the critical things they're going to show? Let me know in the chat box. Let me know in the chat box. Let me go and look here. You're going to see it on my screen now because we're doing the messy way here because of how's my battery doing? Ooh, 19%. Hang in there, battery. Hang in there. So yes, okay, so there we go. Agreed. Yes, I do. Me. Okay, so you can see people. You can see it repetitively if you can see my echo on the screen where people are coming up. I'd retire a lot sooner, says Marcus. Agreed. And it's not a very complex technique. It's just going to require discipline. A lot of what we teach you is, and a lot of what we teach is going to require the discipline to ensure that you focus on those items. So when we get into all the business items after a week or so, after a session or so, we're going to teach you about all these things that you should do to manage your money more effectively and to work with money more effectively and to manage teams and build teams more effectively and to create structure and order in your life and business. And these are often frogs. These are often things that we procrastinate on. So it really, truly does make a massive difference. To stop every morning. Honestly, what I recommend is you start your morning with a morning routine. I do things like mind power exercises. I recite things. I look at my goals. I do meditation. I do exercise. And I try and avoid even getting to work for the first hour or hour and a half of my day. So I get up relatively early. Then this is the process that I'd want to go through first, which is determine. I often work on it the night before. And then review it in the morning to make sure that I'm clear about what my priorities are and what I'm going to work on first. So it's very powerful from that context. All right, the second thing I want to share with you is my dear friend. I say that I don't actually know Stephen Covey. He's obviously passed away now, but the late Stephen Covey. I call him a friend because his book had a profound impact on me. Now, many of you may have heard or have even read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's quite a funny thing. Normally when I mention this in audiences and groups and whatever, you say, have you guys read The 7 Habits? How many of you have read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? And hold on, put their hands up. How many people put their hands up? And then I say, who would like to recite The 7 Habits? And all the hands go down. And then I say, well, give me one habit. And they go, sharpening the saw. Seems like the one that most people remember is the 7th habit, sharpening the saw, which is what I told you about last week as well, or what I'm talking about now, which is your journey of self-development, constantly improving yourself. But anyway, these 7 habits are, highly acclaimed. It's one of the top leadership and personal growth books ever written in the world. And unfortunately, we lost Stephen a couple of years ago to a silly bike accident because he is truly a special guy. And there's the 7 habits. I can't ask you, do you know them? Because they're right in front of your screen. I actually put the screen up once and asked, and people were still confused. And I was like, it's on the screen. Habit number 1, be proactive. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3, put first things first, etc., etc. Those are the 7 habits. So the first things first was such a profound habit because it was around time management that it was actually a whole book called First Things First, was written by Stephen Covey and one of his associates. So it's quite worthwhile getting your hands on that if you want to. I'm going to share one of the primary concepts from that because it's going to help you understand why you actually struggle with things in time. So Stephen talks about the urgency addiction. So he says if we create a quadrant, okay, so a quadrant is, like 4 different options. So if you drew a square and drew a line through the middle horizontally and vertically, you'd have what we call 4 quadrants, okay? And so if we drew up a quadrant and on the left-hand side, we said, this is not important and that's important. And on the top side, we said this is urgent and that's not urgent. So here's your quadrant, your 4 squares, right? So in other words, square number 1 is urgent and important. Square number 2 is not urgent, but it is important. Square number 3 is urgent, but it's not important. Square number 4 is not urgent nor important. Okay. So these are the 4 quadrants we talk about in life. And everything we do in life on a daily basis and a continuous basis, you can actually fit into these quadrants. They fit into one of these quadrants. Either it's urgent and important, or it's not urgent but important, or it's urgent but not important, or it's neither urgent nor important. Okay, we call that the quadrant of escape. So interesting enough, before I go on with this, please share with me in the chat, which one do you think would be the most important quadrant in terms of your own life management? Is it quadrant number 1, which is urgent and important? Is it quadrant number 2, which is not urgent, but it is important? So it's not urgent, but it is important. Is it quadrant number 3, which is not important, but it's urgent? Or is it quadrant number 4, which is not urgent nor important? I'm assuming you won't write down number 4, but you never know. Which of those quadrants, 1, 2, 3, or 4, do you think is most important? I'm leaving it up the screen, but I'm going to look at your answers just now just to get an indication, because if I go and look at your answers, the screen's going to disappear. So just think about that. Tell me 1, 2, 3, or 4, which of the quadrants do you think is most prolific, most important for you to spend time in when you look at your time as life in life on a daily basis as a whole. So let me go and see what you guys are typing quickly, just out of interest. And don't look there because the answer might have been revealed. And we go, okay, so 1, 1, 1, 2, a couple of 2s, lots of 1s. Yeah, Steve, you obviously know because you've either learned this or you've been on our course before. So 2s or 1s. So some of you are on it. A lot of you haven't. Maybe it's still coming through. 2s and 1s. So everyone's saying 2 or 1. Most people are saying 1. A couple of people are saying 2. Okay, so let's go back, press play, and explain this. So firstly, what fits into these quadrants? What fits into these quadrants that we have to dedicate our time to as a whole? So number 1, quadrant number 1, what we find in quadrant number 1 is crises, pressing problems, deadline projects, chasing money, urgent meetings, some emails. In other words, they're urgent and important, need your attention now. And it is important, so you've got to do it. So crisis in the business, putting out fires, something went wrong, something broke, is often important and urgent, right? And pressing problems and deadline projects, and it's you can kind of get the picture. Both urgent and important. What's under not urgent but important? Interesting. What's under not urgent but important? So most of you actually said number 1 is the most important quadrant. Some of you said number 2 was. Number 2 is planning, prevention, relationship building, new opportunities, learning, development. These things are important, but often we don't get to them because urgency is the addiction. And the interesting thing is we fall into quadrant 3, which is not important, but it is urgent. This is where the chaos of life comes in. Interruptions, some calls, meetings, most emails, pressing matters with no impact, popular activities, Facebook. Actually, Facebook we put into 4, but it's like, we're addicted to urgency. This is one of the things that Stephen recognized. We're addicted to urgency, which is a problem because we focus on things that are urgent, and sometimes things that aren't important become the things that we focus on. And that's where email, like I said, what Brendan Bouchard said before, it's just a convenient place for other people's agendas, is often why, and that's why we put a lot of email as coming as urgent but not important. But then it's quadrant 4. You would think you wouldn't hang out here, but believe me, you do. This is trivia, busy work, surfing the net, Facebook, most of, private calls, pleasant activities. Escape. We call these quadrants the quadrant of illusion because we think things are urgent. Therefore, we think they are important. But we actually, when we assess them, realize that they weren't important. They were urgent, but they were somebody else's urgency more than yours. We have the quadrant of escape, which is where we just go to switch off, get out of all this urgency and importance and actually do it. And unfortunately, we spend too much time sometimes because of the chaos in life in the quadrant of escape. We have the quadrant of demand. This is the urgent and important things. Okay, this is where we live a lot of the time in small business in particular, putting out fires, doing stuff. There's stuff that has to be done all the time because we are stuck being technicians in our business, doing, instead of actually working on our business, which would be the not urgent but important things. We do not spend a lot of time in the zone, as it's called, quadrant number 2. This is where we should ultimately be. Everything we teach in around the Real Entrepreneur Intensive and the Real Entrepreneur as a concept is actually to get you to start living in quadrant number 2 more than quadrant number 1, 3, and 4. It's impossible as a business owner, especially if you've got an evolving or growing business, to not spend time in quadrant number 1. But the problem is you're so absorbed by 1, 3, and 4 that you don't get around to 2. So when we talk about identifying those frogs, that's why they're frogs, because often they are things that fall into quadrant number 2, planning, prevention, relationship building, new opportunities, learning, development, we don't find the time to do them. And it is critical, and it is a failure, and it is a problem. Interesting analogy. I should have actually put this video up for you to watch. But there is a video, if you search a lot for Stephen Covey on this, where he does this exercise. He used to do this live in front of people. And so he takes like a beaker or bucket, let's say a see-through bucket, and he's got 2 buckets on the table. One is got a whole lot of sand in it, and he takes the empty bucket and he says, all right, here's the empty bucket. And he says, the sand represents all the urgent things that aren't important and the urgent things that are important, and it represents all the stuff that keeps us busy all the time. And he pours it into the bucket and fills about 2/3 of the bucket up with the sand or this gravel. And then he comes along and he says, now we've got the most important things, and he has these rocks, and they're normally colored, and they've got titles on them. So learning and development, and new opportunities, and personal. I mean, we said learning and development already. Our kids, our family. There's actually often many personal things that are important but not urgent. And he just comes up with he invites somebody up from the audience. He says, okay, so I want you to, we're going to put all the stuff that that is consuming you, all the stuff that's sort of urgent in the bucket, so you can see it's 2/3 full. And now you've got all these rocks, and I want you to put these rocks in the bucket as well. But you cannot go over the lip of the bucket. The rocks cannot stick out over the top of the bucket. So you want to give it a shot. So she says yes. And the video, there's a lady that does it, and she looks at stuff and she picks it up and she puts it in. So you can put a few rocks in straight away. And then, but of course you start to shuffle, like move the sand around, dig a little bit, and put the rock in, and you're trying and you're trying. The bottom line is you cannot get all the rocks in. Doesn't matter how you try. I mean, you can kind of realize that straight away. There's only 1/3 of the space in the bucket left, and the rocks are probably going to fill the bucket, especially if you can't go over the top. And so, we try and we try. We fill our lives with all this chaos and all this urgent stuff that's not even all important, and we can't get the critical things in. And he said, yeah, it's an interesting, brilliant metaphor, this. So eventually this lady actually figures out that there's an empty bucket, the bucket that had the sand in the first time. She says, can I use this bucket? And he says, yeah, you can use that bucket. Because he kept on saying to her, like, different paradigm, think out of the box, different paradigm. She said, okay, can I use this bucket? He said, yeah. And she took all the rocks and she put them into the bucket. She managed to fit all of the rocks, okay, which literally filled the whole bucket, but she managed to fit them all in. And so these were all the important things in her life. She put them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and got it up to the top and said, wow. And then she took the sand. That was another bucket that she was struggling with, and she poured it over the top, and she shook it a bit so it all fell down and made sure it filled every little crevice and opportunity. And she put it in, and she actually got all of the sand in. So not only did she get all the important things in, but she actually got all the other urgent and important things in as well, and even some of the urgent and not so important things in. So metaphorically, she could not get the rocks in when it was full of sand, but she could get the sand in when the rocks were full. And first things first, metaphorically, is listen, identify what is truly most important and focus on those things first. And this is not just related to business. This is related to your values. This is related to the things that are truly most important in your life. And the other stuff, amazingly, will actually fit in. But if you focus and you prioritize the other stuff, you will not get to quadrant number 2. I hope that makes sense. My battery is telling me it's dying here. So we're actually going to call it quits on this particular item, which is what we were going to do. So guys, I hope you got some value out of that. And please let me know if you did before I die here. And, hopefully those techniques can really help you going forward. There is detail on them in the manuals. And there are other techniques that we go through in depth in the manuals around, the when, the personal productivity. So check those out and tell me if you got some value out of this. But otherwise, we passed the 6, I would assume. Yeah, we're 7 minutes past 6. So thanks for hanging around. Sorry about the major disturbances. We'll do our best to make sure Monday we don't repeat that. Otherwise, we've got our backup, which is drive, and be a little bit messy, but make it happen. Brian, the CCPs, sorry, I missed that, Sally. Is my team talking? They have been sent to everyone who's purchased. So if you have purchased and paid online, you should have received an email with a link to go and do the test. So maybe take some time out to do that. I did tell you guys to potentially focus on, geez, I got so many things open here. To potentially focus, that's not even the right one. Brian. That's the one that we were on. Because it was still live, to add time on to actually budget 3 hours in these sessions, because sometimes we'll go over, And if not, you can use that extra time to actually do some of the work. So the two things that you really want to do off the back of this is you want to go and do your values, do the value determination. It's in your manual. You can do it off the manual, or I will send you a video. Or if you've already got access to the Success Club, you can use that. Do your values. That's a very powerful tool. And the second thing is, if you see the value in the concept of the profiling, then do your profile and find out what your natural profile is. This is the only thing that we really recommend you should buy. Everything else we share with you over the next few weeks are optional, so those are going to be dictated by your needs per se. But the profiling is something, if you had to say, Brian, what should all of you do? You should all do the profile. Okay, so if you didn't manage, remember, you've got to type in I want token or I want profile, and we'll look after you. We will send you some stuff probably in the morning to help you out with accessing it if you didn't manage to access it before. But the sooner you do it, the better. So those that have purchased and managed to succeed on the system, you should already in your inbox have the link to go and do the profile. For the rest of you, let's get you sorted out as soon as we can, and then you'll get that soon afterwards. Okay, people that were going to pay EFT for the profiles have also been sent. So guys, please don't make us chase you and waste our time. We don't make almost any money on these profiles. Really, it's not something we're doing for making money, because we have to pay the bulk of it across to the guys that created it. So, do us a favor and just, if we've sent you invoice details to pay EFT, just pay it tonight if possible. Pay it straight away. And then we can get your token to you and you can do it. Guys, I'm worried my battery's going to die any second, so I just want to formally say good night, good evening. Thank you so much. I hope you guys got some value out of this. Sorry again for the jitteriness. Let me see if there's any comments coming through. And we look forward to interacting with you on Monday. Monday, we're going to carry on. We're going to talk about how, and we're going to talk about why. Okay, so how and why. And we're going to wrap that up during Monday. We may have a special guest for you on Monday. I can't promise, because he's got a big personal dilemma that he's dealing with. But if he's going to try his best, we were hoping he'd actually be with us tonight. And if he does come in, please book that extra time, because if he does come in, it's going to be later, and he will go on probably till 7. So a really, really special guest, and it's all related to what we're talking about. So, but I can't promise you yet, but hopefully it will be there. So please budget till 7 o'clock on a Monday. And we'll finish up on these 2 items that I mentioned, and then we'll hopefully have the guest. If not, we'll just move on into the next sections. We'll move into the money sections. Guys, thanks very much. I hope you got some good value out of this, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Please pop us an email if you're stuck with anything or need anything. If you've done it, guys, I'm not going to, I'm going to have to turn the thing off shortly, my team. So please make sure you've taken notes of everything that you need, because my battery's got 4% left in it. And then we'll chat in the morning to see how we can make sure this incident doesn't happen again. You got everything. Thanks, Maritza. Efficiency, we appreciate that. All right, guys, so have a good evening, and we'll catch up with you guys on Monday. Look forward to it. Ciao for now.